Hey,
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, here we are.
who's gonna
Having
start?
a,
We're talking creative stuff today.
yes, we
Yay.
are.
My favorite thing.
Kind of like a little bit of inner child stuff. So
Mhm.
things that bring joy.
Yeah. Who wants to
Who
start?
wants to go ahead?
Me?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I like to do a lot of things. And because I like to do a lot of things, I was thinking I'm just gonna talk about one thing. And I was so basically I'm ancient. Well, I'm not that much, but I
You're the youngest one here.
I stand corrected. Anyways, I became in 1993, I became a dressmaker. And then I went and did the whole tailoring courses, etc. I didn't do the apprenticeship because I was already working and I just didn't have enough hours in a day. And I went to the dressmaking school originally because I was so short and tiny and strangely proportioned that I didn't have any clothes that I could find. And but that I'm not talking about the sewing today. I talk about other way of making clothes that I like to do. I haven't had enough coffee today. Sorry, I'm kind of like stuttering and searching for words. But I took one thing that I did a long time ago because I just figured out I was collecting some stuff that I've done along the very long years, and then what happened and now what I'm doing, etc. And it's changed quite a bit. So this is something I remember this. I want to show a cardigan that I made just before I had an injury to my shoulder and needed to stop knitting for several years. And I remember this. Hold on, I have this candle thing here. I dyed the yarn for this. So you
That
can
is
see
beautiful.
the yarn is
Beautiful.
variegated. And it wasn't my intention to knit something with two different colors, but the yarn that I was using, I ran out of it. And I needed to dye some more yarn. So the two dye lots became entirely different. But I don't remember how I think this was bottom up that we used to knit back in then. It is 100% wool. So this is only suitable, at least with my skin, only to be worn on top of things. Now there are different things, different um kind of qualities in wool. Say, let's take like a merino wool. So the staples in a merino sheep are very long and they are crimpy, and they are much softer than say some worsted wool. So it's like really kind of a woolly rustic wool. But this is not the softest wool, but this is 100% wool, and that is why this, after I don't know how many years it is now, over 10, nearly 15 years, and it still looks like it's done just now. And I usually, when I knit, I like to make my own designs. And I did back in the days, just simply, I like to look at knitting, patterns and everything, but I just feel that oftentimes it's made much too complex. It doesn't have to be that complicated. I know my own measurements, and especially when you do something that this is kind of like borderline pin-uppy. So because there is a waist and there is the breast pleat is hidden in these gatherings over here, just beneath the seed stitch or moss stitch, depending on which language group you live in. And there is a waist increases and decreases, as you see running here. So I use the dressmaking methods to knitting. And so I used to knit a lot, but then I needed to take a break because I couldn't anymore. I had an operation and it was completely failed. And eventually my pain threshold became so high that it has confused a couple of doctors along the way. But also I've managed to kind of heal myself a little. So I could start, okay, I can knit now, but I do it in a kind of unorthodox way because I move more my left arm instead of the right arm that usually is done, especially when you knit the English style. It's called the flicking. I don't do that. I knit in continental way because I love the endless sea of stockinette stitch knit on circular needles. I love that, and I can do it very fast when I'm kind of spaced out and at it. So I'll just show a random selection of things I've done and what do I now have on the needles. This is something I did, was it last, I think it may have been even last winter. This is there was this we have this television program here called Strömse, which is a Swedish speaking program that they make all kinds of fabulous things by hands. And there's a saying like, when things go like they go in Strömse, it means like, everything gets done successfully and beautifully and organically and effortlessly, like it was always designed that way. And there is this very talented lady who whips up these fantastic knitting patterns. And I don't have it here. I did the original Strömsetröjan, which is a jumper with this motif. But then she came up with a Strömse, this cardigan, and I did knit this. And because I had this beautiful tweed yarn that I found, but I wasn't happy with the kind of a special effects yarn. And I was feeling a little poorly, so I wasn't going to go to any shops to find some yarn. Plus, I have yarn enough to, last a couple of lifetimes here. So I decided to dye a little. So again, I dyed the yarn. So there are
Pretty.
Beautiful.
of peacock. Rex would appreciate this like very kind of a petrol-y color, and that, but then there's also these burgundy hues here. You don't see it from from
You
fresh.
don't see it from a distance too
No,
much,
you
but
don't.
it is
No, you don't.
beautiful.
You have to be privileged enough to come to a close contact to see all the hues.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah,
One day.
I love this. So this is one of the things I did, and this is a la souk polar. This is made of scrap yarn. This is just scrap yarn that I have. This is enormous. You can go to North Pole in this and you will survive. It's so thick and so soft, and I go out in the winter because it's no secret. I like to rummage the woods. I wear this, and it's so long. It goes underneath my derriere. And I can sit on this. I don't, my cheeks don't get wet, nothing. I can, this is a life savior. Everyone who roams the woods needs to have a really good, really thick jumper because this is so fantastic. But anyway,
Is that made of wool?
that's kind of there's wool and there's wool blend.
Okay, so wool blend, so it's not
alpaca and there's a little bit of a mohair because to me, mohair is like a prickly prison. But it's kind of mohair blend when there are other things like.
But when you said it was soft, I figured it wasn't just wool.
Exceedingly soft, and I always, when something is close to my
skin
and throat, and the sensitive areas, especially here, I always choose the yarns that are the softest here.
Beautiful, Dina, beautiful.
So anyways, this is.
How did you learn how to knit?
Everyone knows how to knit here. It was taught in schools, I remember.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, and even my mother, as awful as she is, she did teach me how to knit. And she kept me well in the yarn. She just liked me to knit, and I was a fast knitter when I was a kid. I had another girl. I was kind of like, we were frenemies when it came to knitting. We were good friends, but we were always competing, like who started,
Competing.
I started a, jump this and that day. And she said, well, I'm going to start a jump today. And I'm like, and then we would have this feverish, competition. Who comes up with a new jumper that, the next day or the day after, etc. I would spend nights knitting. And I would barricade my door just so that I could stay up and knit. It was not even a play or anything. I meant business.
Well,
And
that's awesome that you learned as a child, and
I
that's how
did.
it should
When,
be.
even,
And that,
when I learned as a child as well, I didn't
yeah.
know. The first thing I did, I just started to do the thing.
Yeah, well, it explains why you also have evolved so tremendously and comfortably into the beautiful work that you do. So
Thank you. And this is a special one. This is my treasure. This is 100% wool. Most of this is organic wool, and most of this is hand dyed by me as well. And the espresso colored wool is one that I haven't dyed, and that is because this is made from black sheep, like Finnish sheep, and the black sheep really aren't black. They are more like espresso colored, if you can see that. It's kind of like a very
Pretty
dark,
color.
it's
very rich.
it's like a very dark brown. And actually these are, much of these yarns are, again, my scrap projects are so funny because I knit this. Oh, I haven't buttoned it. How lazy of me. So I knit this. It's a cardigan. It's 100% wool. It's this black sheep's wool. And I remember when I was knitting this, the only reason why it took me so long to knit this all the way to the end was because it's just, even now, it smells like sheep in a beautiful way. And it's so soft. And when you knit this, it's like your hands get conditioned. And my skin loves lanolin. Now, this is a kind of a woolly wool as well. But this is the softest woolly wool I have touched. This is not merino. This is kind of like, Finnish sheep that need to survive the cold climates. And I incorporated these pockets here and everything. It's kind of like a long cardigan as well. But I had this one skein of this black yarn, and I used this. But the pattern for this, I made it up as I went. This is a, from top down cardigan. And all these patterns, I just, made it up as I went, except for this part here. I think it was Norwegian or Icelandic.
I love that pattern.
I love historical clothing and the practicality and kind of a beauty in simplicity in older kind of a historical clothing. And this is one of the knitting patterns I found at the time. So I wanted to incorporate it here, but otherwise everything here is kind of like I just made it up as I went. And much of like this here is embroidered afterwards. And all the cuffs, I knitted it, it's just a one row of pearl, and then you fold it and you get this very neat and beautiful little bumpy road. It doesn't, let me cover myself if it doesn't focus, but it's beautiful. Oh, goodness sake, sorry. It's beautiful when every yarn is slightly variegated, so nothing comes out as a dull thing. And it's really long as well, because I wanted to, like, the end of this is embroidered, and this is heavily embroidered because I wanted this to be a bit of a traditional and a bit of Slavic, like, you see these embroidered kind of a traditional clothing. So yeah, that's that. But these are just a few. But then, when I mentioned the endless sea, I was stockinette stitch on circular needles. This is a beautiful example of that. Another one, 100% this is Sahenmeier, this wool, and I sticked it, and which means that I just knit it in the round, and then when it was done, I just cut it open from the middle and turn on the kind of a lapels, you know, to the back side. And this is organically grown cotton that I did because I wanted to be able to wear this. So I hand stitched to the collar, so it doesn't stretch either, and to the torso, these strips of cotton fabric, and then that reinforces the buttons as well. And these buttons are from 60s or 70s.
Mm-hmm.
I like to collect.
Not only is it beautiful, but you also finish your work really beautiful too. So
yeah,
that makes
that's one thing. I want to be able to wear them. My skin is very sensitive, and it's very thin, and I'm the pastiest creature. So it's like everything that can scratch and hurt my skin will. And but then again, I don't like to mix too many fibers. Like mix acrylic is an awful name to me. It's like I get instant heebie-jeebies, but etc. But then if you start to buy all these cashmeres, everything like that, I'm too old, and kind of a gravity has taken a hold of myself to marry money or something. Plus I never did it so far, so why should I? But you know, I like wool. I love knitting with wool, but I have my challenges in wearing it. And so I don't like that much to knit with plant fibers, but sometimes I do. Like this is bamboo. And it's beautiful. But the thing with bamboo is it's very soft, but then it stretches. So this is a summer knit, and it's very wonderful to wear. But as you see, as I stretch just a little bit, this is what happens, like the gaping, etc. But it's nice. I like it, but I don't wear it that much. And this is my latest. I finished it a couple of days ago. I have some scrap yarns, this very thick 100% wools. I had this, and this were my scrap yarns. And I started to do this. So hot in here. I'm going to brave the elements.
Don't talk to me about hot.
Yeah. Yeah, you live in Texas. I don't. So here's something.
So cute.
I love it. It's like this poncho. It goes. Okay. See, I'm so sorry. I can't. I'm too. So it goes kind of like, you know, even lower than your waist. And it's basically a poncho. I just started to make a capelet or something I can wear either, you know, underneath a coat or on top of coat. And this is, I don't know what kind of a sorcery was done with this wool. I made one cardigan with this, and I can wear it with, you know, with other, you know, clothes underneath, but it doesn't kill me when it touches the skin, even at the neck. I don't understand it. They don't make this yarn anymore, but I had this one skein and I wanted to use it to the, you know, so I was thinking if I can use it on the cardigan, I probably could use it something, you know, in a kind of a still airy. It doesn't, if it was, you know, tight like this, I probably couldn't use it, but this is very kind of a still loose and separate from skin. But you know, when you wear these shawls and capes and ponchos, they just feel like they're hug.
Like a hug.
Yeah, it does. It's just, there's something so romantic and poetic wearing something like, you know, something like covers your neck and your kind of a sensitive areas, and you can just curl up inside like almost like you're wearing a blanket.
Well, Dana, you have a tendency to make it look romantic and wonderful. I will have to say I've not ever really
fondle my knits.
Well, I'm not really a fan of having things right up against my neck. So You
Yeah,
know, I think you either do or you don't, and it
yeah.
depends on the material, but you do beautiful work with
Absolutely gorgeous. It's like a whole new level of
yeah.
knitting, in my opinion.
I don't want to share anything now.
Yes,
I
you
know.
do. Yes, you do. And now I want to show some things. I'm going to keep it, short and simple because, then when I do, I have these scraps and you can do granny squares, but then there are enough granny squares in the world. So I started a new kind of like a scrappy, but this is kind of a mixed yarn. This is kind of like a mixed bag. And I dyed these yarns as well. And I made
Oh,
this.
cute.
I made this, it's kind of like a French lily and a leaf motif
Mhm.
there. Where's the French lily? Here. There was
Yeah.
space only for, it's kind of it's not even proportionate. Yeah, I don't care. So, but this is something because you have to hold many yarns. Too hot at the moment. I'm going
Yeah.
to continue when it's later. And
Mhm.
something I started before it became hot here was there was a Finnish lady, I don't remember her name, but she's designed this design called jewel, and there are all kinds of jewel colors. So it's a big old mess. This is one of those, stick projects. So
Wow.
I'm just afraid of like candle here.
Yeah,
So
don't start any fires, please.
no, but one thing about wool, it doesn't burn. It distinguishes itself. It doesn't quite show, but it's quite kind of this comes with a generous positive ease. And then I cut it open like all of my cardigans, and I just close it from here and put the buttons, etc. It's a beautiful pattern, but there's usually when you do fair isle, you only have 2 yarns, and with this one you sometimes have 4 and 5. So this is not
Yeah.
for the faint of heart.
Well,
And
like I said, that's why you've been doing this for such a long time, and you know all the tricks and how to do multiple yarns, and then you graduate as you do, and
yeah,
so
but then
that's
the simple ones I like them because you can also like when I'm here talking with you, I could be knitting that endless sea
yeah,
of stockinette stitch. But something I started because like I mentioned earlier when we did the video, that I started a new knitting project because I needed a new knitting project like a hole in a head. I don't even remember how many projects I have started because they're just everywhere. But I have this beautiful, this is undyed. This is from South America. It's 100% wool. It is a little itchy, but it's not bad. And I know I'm going to do some kind of a lining. And I started a cardigan. And what more could be more classical than a cable knit around cardigan?
Mhm.
And there she is. Well, on her way, it's just, I'm using 3mm needles, which means they're quite tiny. And very simple. I just figured out I'll just make this moss stitch and then just, 2 different kinds of cables and keep going. And there was a 1 row because I figured I have some freshwater pearls. I love freshwater pearls. So I made 1 extra row here. I wonder if I can, yeah, there. It's a little bit longer there. So I'm going to sew freshwater pearls to these, like inside these cables once I
Yeah, that'll be cool.
yeah, and that was before the separation because this is knitted from top down as well. So that row goes from all the way from sleeves to the torso and then, to the back panel, etc. So it's just a delicate little detail, but it's just something that catches your eye, and it doesn't have to be much, but you will remember because you made it, that's that kind of like something special you can't find when you buy something from a store. And something like this, it can take up to hundreds of hours.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Hundreds of hours. Like this wool wasn't even expensive. It was
Yeah.
something like 3 or 4 euros a skein, 100, like 230 meters, 100 grams. And that is for 100% wool. That is exceedingly inexpensive. So, but it doesn't even matter because, even the time that you gift to what you're doing, is just makes it that special.
Mhm.
But I think I've spoken enough. That was the last one project on the go I wanted to show you guys.
Well,
Now,
you are not without something to do, but I could
no,
say
but this is
you
just
were
one thing. That's why I said I can only show one thing, because I got all kinds of stuff going on.
yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
that's exactly what I've been thinking. Like, I need to go back to there when, you do something and
yeah,
it gives you joy just because, you do something. I mean, all of us have so much to do in the day. And I think it's so important for everyone to take a little bit of a time from the day and do something that brings you joy. Because if you don't do it, nobody's going to,
right.
like, here's the book, go, now is your time to read. Nobody, in my entire life, nobody's brought me a book and say, sit down and read.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times
take the time.
Yeah. These patterns, have, for a lot of people, they start when in our youth. Okay. And sometimes we get busy. Now, I will say for me, I was lucky enough to learn how to, like, music was big. So I was doing piano and all the music and voice, but I learned somewhere in grade school how to knit, how to crochet by a friend. So I never really picked up the knitting. I tried to teach myself, and I can stumble through it a little bit, but and then I learned there was multiple ways of knitting, like you were saying. So but bottom line, I would do some crocheting, and I did a lot of Afghans or whatever, which were in different patterns and beautiful. I don't really even have one close by because I think I got tired of looking at them, and a lot of them I gave away. But they were usually a winter project. And so, yes, I understand you can be aimlessly listening to a conversation, watching a show or whatever, and be doing your project. It was nice to stay busy, right? But, then I would basically make some of the headband things that go on you and cover your ears.
Is that one of those shiny yarns?
Yeah, well, this is, okay, so I'm not used to you working with wool. I don't have the same appreciation I just picked what looked nice and what was around. So I'm realizing more about, but yeah, this is that variegated, and it had shiny in it.
Because,
and then there was
the kind of a yarn that has a reflector inside.
Yeah. And then there's other ones. And I did get a bunch of different buttons that I would grab. This is a different one, just put a different.
So those are knit?
These are crochet.
Crochet, okay.
Most of mine is crochet because and this is just plain, but when they have a little bit of variegation to them. And I do have hats. Do you think I thought to bring one? So hats and that kind of stuff I've done. I get confused or frustrated. So when it comes to reading patterns for sweaters and stuff, so haven't gone that far. But I did, do some slippers.
Oh, cute.
Or whatever.
Cute.
Oh, looks so warm.
I had a lot. And this is not wool, but like I said, I ended up liking lots of dishcloths. Or little cloths, and
pretty.
Again, they're all basically just kind of playing around with some patterns. So, and then you got your variegated again, that makes it look kind of fun. I will say I haven't made this myself, but it's on my list. I bought this, and this is actually a bag that's made out of your plastic shopping bags, much like Steph does her rug. So and it's waterproof. So that's an easy thing, right, to do, to use when you go to the beach or whatever. But the latest thing was when adult coloring books came out. That is one thing as a child that we did. And we would always go to my grandma's house when we had to go after school. She had color books, and us 3 kids would sit at the table for hours and color. And what we did was, as we grew up, you learn how to outline and shade, and you definitely see how you did a better job. But every time we did our picture in the color book, we would put our name and the date. And when she passed, I mean, those got thrown out, and I was so sad because I would have loved to have had those. And so when my little granddaughters come over and they do their thing, I do have them date them and put their name on them. But you know, the adult color books are so awesome, and you can use your markers.
Like a piece of art in and of
It's
itself.
yeah.
beautiful.
I mean,
Oh,
you
wow.
name
Look
them.
at that. It's gorgeous.
They can be super. In fact, some of these are so cool that you just don't want to really mess them up, right?
Uh-huh.
Some of them are crayons, and so I actually might make a copy, you know, a photocopy of some of them, just if I want to make sure you could frame that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Just
and
imagine one day if you have a
Yeah.
book like that filled.
Yeah. It's funny how some patterns are cool, and you go to use them and you go, oh, I don't feel like that one. That's too hard. And you go to something else. But I know that my grandmother and my great grandmother, and they're later in their life, they got into oil paintings. So if anybody knows about Bob Ross, who he is, I know that he had a station and he taught people how to paint, and it made a lot of sense. But by that time, you have to have everything, you know, the space for it, the easel, all that stuff. But it actually really, whoops, sorry about that. Sorry about that. It actually really appeals to me at this time. So basically I went to a place, you know, where they have a picture up there, and everybody in the class paints the same picture. And like I say, what's really amazing is whether it's the mixing of the colors or the way you perceive it and put it on the paper, on that canvas, everybody's picture was different in a beautiful way. And so that was really cool. So I do hope someday to get more into some of that, maybe even watercolors or do the paints. But and then, you know, last year I had some lavender, so I've got the lavender buds in here. And so I think that I will do what Stephanie's going to talk about too, and then start making a few potions and lotions and stuff. So anyway, that's my deal.
I have a question, Juliann. You showed that beautiful painting. What medium did you use to do that?
Now, Dana, you get so detailed. I really don't know.
I'm interested in
I think, you know what, they were acrylic paints.
Okay, yeah. So I didn't think it was oil, because that's an ordeal to use oil.
Yeah,
paint.
and you're not going to have a bunch of novices doing that.
These days, they actually I have water-based oils because, they do that.
See, it's a world that I need to explore. I mean, now that we're getting into a different place in our life and the world, and things are changing, I'm going to stop and smell the roses a bit more.
Yeah.
You know, raising a family and working, all of these kind of things kind of took a back burner. So yes, between that and the music, I look forward to it. So,
so the thing is, with water-based oils, you can have them in the room with you without having to have a kind of a separate, because I was using paints when the boy was still little enough, so he wasn't walking yet. I had an extra room that was locked, because that's where I had my, you know, turpentine and all the kind of poisonous basically things. And when you do oils, they still, you know, you get the fumes 6 months after minimum, but they started to make these water-based oils these days. So you can actually exist in the same area, in the same room with the paints.
Yeah, I mean, again, no matter what your project is, I mean, like I still have lots of scrap yarn, but you have to have a place for all your stuff. Whether it's a studio for painting.
We all need our own, like, separate house just for crafts and supplies. That's
a very large she shed, as they call it.
Yes.
Yeah. I need the castle. I'm just over here wondering, why do I not have the castle?
Yeah, well, one of these days.
I mean, I don't understand this.
Yeah, well, you have something to work towards or manifest.
Yeah, well, just a little bit.
Yeah, and Stephanie, you got lots of beautiful things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always played around with things. I started out kind of liking photography, and then I also sewed when I was a kid, but just like simple stuff. But now I have done a few pieces of clothing, and but these are taking those lavender bits and sewing them into little sachets, and they're nice. I put them in the dryer and they make your clothes smell fantastic.
Wow.
But then they're also nice to give away. I tried, the nicer ones I'll give away. But I just ordered some more lavender from eBay and expecting that tomorrow. So I've got like a whole bunch of set up already, just ready to fill. So I'm going to be doing that. So that's always fun. So I have a whole bag that I keep, and I just, when I need to add another to the dryer, I add.
Plus, when you open up that bag, you just go,
oh my gosh, it's amazing. And my dog is here, and I have to apologize. They're working on my roof, so there's like lots of really loud noises going on.
Don't
and
hear
as
a
soon
thing.
as I brought this in, my dog settled down, because I brought him in here because he was like really restless.
Oh yeah.
And I learned pardon?
Lavender's very calming usually.
Right, exactly. So it's pretty awesome. So when I first moved to Texas, I think it was 2000 or so, I had a friend, and she would sit and like crochet rugs, and I was like, that is so cool. So we had a little class on that, just the two of us, and so that's when I started to kind of do rugs. And that's the only thing I learned. I learned how to crochet rugs. I started with like squares, and it was just something to do. Now both of these are made out of t-shirt material.
I love the
because they're
color
fun to
that
do.
one.
Yeah. And
Very soft.
this one's out of cotton, and I used to buy fabric by the yard when it was cheap, but of course you can't, and it's all cotton. But they're so pretty and so fun, and it's so nice to just sit and work. And I have a lot of rugs. Lot of rugs, and people will give me like supplies for it, and I'll take them and process them and just have fun making stuff with them. So
yeah.
But I'm gonna give a bunch away when I get to that point where I feel finished. And I have done okay. So this is the extent of my knitting.
Well, knitting is a whole different ball game, really.
And this, that's my knitting. But I've done like hats. This is crochet, and then I've got a hat that matches the scarf. But I put little beads on there too, so just for fun. They flop around when I'm wearing the hat. So and I've made this too. This is like the salvage from fabric. When I was cutting up the fabric for my cotton rugs, I saved the salvage because it was so pretty. And this is just salvage.
Well, like a coaster or something.
Yeah, it's actually, I keep this by my bed, so I put my water on that.
It's beautiful colors too.
It feels really soft for some reason. I don't know why, because of some of them had a little bit of a frayed edge, and I love this. It's pretty awesome. And then, of course, I make beads, and I've started playing with making jewelry off and on in the 90s, just because I was working at an office job and was needing a creative fix. So I did that, and I learned how to make glass beads in 2001, something like that. My friend and I had a garage sale so that we could buy the equipment for it. And so I've been making beads since then. And so here's an example of some of the beads I made. I made both the upper and the lower beads and some of my jewelry.
Beautiful.
And there's all sorts of I try and do all sorts of stuff with the beads, but it's fun. I love these earrings. They're and working with, like, I work with strings. That's what makes all the lines and the patterns and stuff. And then special glass that has a lot of silver, which is like the purpley. So it has to be done a certain way. I have done a little bit of metal smithing and love doing that, but yeah, I just love to play with jewelry and beads as well. So
wow,
some of that.
It's endless, isn't it? The patterns are endless.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah, every time you sit down at that torch, because I work at a torch, it's like, what can I make today? And the possibilities are just
And even if you're trying to
Mind-blowing.
replicate, you're trying to do the same pattern, it's going to be a little different. That's what handmade
Right.
art in jewelry is about.
Those beads are made one at a time.
Yeah.
So unless you like make two in a row, it's very difficult and challenging to make them match 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I'm always trying to like experiment and improve on
Yeah.
that. So, and I've also done photography and things like that when I was in high school and college. Pardon?
We need pictures.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
trying to.
she's
I was
getting her
about to say
stuff.
pictures. I didn't happen.
So, like, this is a couple of bums I saw on the street. And I did a lot with black and white because that's what I processed all my own film and printed all my own, like I did a series kind of like on the street, somebody just walking down the street. This is one of my favorites. This is, I call this Little Boy Blue.
So did you meet, like, say this person?
I
did
know
you
that guy,
meet
yes.
them? You know
Yes,
him?
I know that guy. Yeah.
I was just
Yeah.
thinking,
I actually went
you
to
were walking in
school.
the forest and all of a sudden there was this dude.
Yeah,
a
this is
helmet.
I went to photography school right out of high school.
Yeah.
And he was in this photography school that I was in. That's Dave Moyer, actually. So oh, there's the roofing people going.
Nope, don't hear him.
Good.
No
Okay, so
worries.
this is like the main drag in Milwaukee, and there was a parade going on after the Brewers won the pennant.
Oh, wow.
So all these people were like coming out of a half-finished building.
Construction workers or something, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they
And
had
then
hard hats.
this is just some machinery I saw, and I just love
Yeah.
the patterns in there.
Mhm.
Yeah. The
And
shades.
if you look at it, like sometimes it looks like faces. It's like
Yeah.
really freaky.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine's house.
Yeah, and basically the lines and the way you look at anything in a black and white
Yeah.
picture is so different than color. So I really enjoy that. And that's a mushroom, you said.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, I've done a lot of photography, and I worked in a lab in college too. So I printed photos all the time. I got to be pretty good at printing photos, but of course they don't do that anymore.
Exactly. It's a lost art.
It's sad because I love that
Yeah.
look of the black and white photography. And in my house, if you would go around my house, there's a lot of photography that I did and friends have done. And yeah, so I do miss that. And I've worked with like the big cameras. I've worked with the kind where you put the thing over your head and the image is
Oh, wow.
upside down. So the 4x5, I've done all that kind of stuff, but I haven't in forever. I got rid of all my film cameras just because I knew it was a dying art, and I didn't feel like having more stuff around, you
Yeah.
know, because again, you have this beautiful hobby, but all the equipment and supplies that you need tend to like be overwhelming.
And you have your
all the
beautiful
things.
photos as a
Yeah.
memento, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
they remind you of that fun that you had when you did those things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I think that for anybody, even thinking they don't have a clever or artistic bone in their body, I think you just need to have some different eyes, look at life in a different way, get into think like a child, think, well, what would I like
Exactly.
to do? Even if it's finger painting, just something really simple.
I think it's a good exercise for everyone to work
Mhm.
on something creative,
Mhm.
because even people who use the opposite side of their brain,
Right.
it's just such a really good exercise to try and use the opposite side of your brain.
Mhm.
And it can be kind of like a meditation.
Oh yeah,
To do
it's
something
100% a
repetitive, like
meditation.
here's another, start of another cardigan. But it's kind of like you just repeat that, like the motion is just this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one other thing I got to thinking too is, our seniors of, in our life, the 65 and older, but, now it's probably people are living longer generally. So your 70s, people that maybe are housebound, people that maybe go to senior centers because they're lonely, or they're actually in facilities because they need some care. They do wonderful with little projects, because their inner child has come back, because we get more childlike in those times. So if you have something that's relatively easy to deliver, introduce to these people, and you feel like, giving somebody a smile, that's a good little thing to do, is just go visit, whether you have friends or family, or you don't, and you just want to create some little, station for coloring or watercolors or something, and paint some rocks. Those are kind of cool. Get some rocks and paint the rocks, and you'll have a friend for life there. So, and man, it makes you feel good.
And music,
music too.
The old people, they really respond to music. And I used to work in a hospital, and it was kind of a geriatric department what we had, and many of the patients, they had lost the ability to speak. Even they couldn't function, they couldn't move, they couldn't speak, but they heard. And I remember we would just bring music. We would ask their family members to bring a radio, bring some kind of a whatever thing that makes music, and all of a sudden we would hear these old grannies, and they would start to sing. They couldn't speak. They could cuss for some reason. They couldn't speak, normally, but it would be like doot, 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 and then a word that is not appropriate to YouTube. So but when they heard music, they would start singing, and
that's a good point with that, for somebody who's starting out and they're not very confident with their skills. They don't want to go out and perform or whatever, but you could bring joy to somebody like that, going to those places in a more intimate setting. And a lot of times, of course, they like the songs from their generation or their youth,
when they were young.
And I think of even school children who are in choir or chorus or whatever. You could get a few of them together. They just go from room to room, or go to their little community. Because that's the stuff that we would do up here, in my little town, or you'd perform or do whatever. So if you want to even bring out your inner child even more, and with a gratefulness that you have by what you're sharing, I highly recommend, and or encouraging your young people that you whether your children or grandchildren, to consider something like that, because the older people and the younger people really do well together. They really love each other so much. There's so much for the seniors to offer them in words of advice and stories, and they just get a lot of enjoyment out of being around the youthful people. So, but anyway, just scratching the surface, and in redirecting what we're doing, we're going to be staying in our fun place a little bit more often, because that definitely is going to raise the vibes. So we encourage you all to look at that a little bit if you haven't stopped to take the time.
Play a little bit.
Yeah, it's important to play. And sometimes, especially, if you've had a kind of a not so fun. And it doesn't necessarily, fun doesn't even can be diluted by the realities of the world. And maybe fun doesn't even feel that much fun. I think it's still absolutely necessary to take a little bit of a time for your own self, to do something that brings you joy, whatever it is. Is it music? Is it painting? Is it writing? Is it crafting? Whatever that is. But I think it's important that still you can't remember what that was if you alienate yourself even from that. So like you owe it to yourself You don't get to lose yourself completely, even
Yeah.
if you feel like it.
Baby steps, right? Just little baby
Yes.
steps. Kind of like they say, dance in the rain, eat the cake, you know,
Jump in
do
the ocean.
yeah, do the fun things. And so we encourage you all to find that kind of fun in your life, even if you start out small. So anyway, this has been beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, girls.
Thank you for
Yes.
sharing everything, ladies.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Love to you all, and
Take care, everybody.
love to everyone out there.
Love to
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.